Well, there are ways that that can be accomplished for real. There's no question about it. I actually know a card cheat who witnessed that exact same thing happening, believe it or not. My name is Darwin Ortiz, and I'll be reviewing the Korean movie Tatsa.
요 순서대로만 들어오세요. 내가 내일 그 귀를 만지면서 신호를 주면은 슬쩍 술을 흘리셔. 에? 그럼 내가 털어주는 척하면서 단을 싹 바꿔서 주면은 그걸 수채통에 싹 밀어 넣으시고. 그럼 내일 막판에 저 새끼 5땡 잡고 제가 7땡을 잡을 겁니다.
The thing about the Korean movie is that they have to do it super slowly and super obvious in a film so that people can follow it. In reality, it would be over in half the time and would be much more difficult to spot.
아이, 그 맥주가 시도 안 돼가지고. 잠깐만. 왜 자꾸 주머니로 손이 가? 이거 뭐야? 이거 뭐야 이 새끼야? 삥이네 삥삥. 야 어쩐지 이게 삥이 안 보이더라고. 야.
It's very melodramatic and it works well in a movie, but would be too over the top to work in reality. In reality, you want subtle things. Somebody jumping on a table is not subtle.
장땡이네.
아, 선생님, 그 손
손이 와.
어떻게 하신 겁니까?
손은 눈보다 빠르다.
Well, I'm not familiar with cheating methods specifically for Hanafuda cards, so perhaps in Hanafuda card games they do use a back palm. In the US, that's simply strictly a magician's move. That's not something that you would use in a card table. It looks good from this side, but it looks terrible from this side. You have to be worried about not just the person you're cheating, but the person who's sitting in the corner smoking a cigarette, the person who's back there half asleep. I don't see that back palm as a real practical move.
무슨 배를 잡고 싶니?
1땡.
아수라 발발타. 돈을 벌고 싶니? 부자가 되고 싶니?
예.
이건 네 정주영이고 이병철이야.
Well, there are ways that that can be accomplished for real. There's no question about it. There's no way of knowing from watching this movie what method he used, because it's a movie. He didn't really use a method. He just recreated the results. But there are ways that you can do that for real. That's basically authentic. The problem with those kinds of cults is not what your hands do, but what your eyes do. For a cult, you have to be catching glimpses of the corners of the cards. I question the practicality of it.
내가 코를 문지르면
무조건 죽어라.
입술을 만지면
한돈을 키워라.
어깨를 주무르면
팬티를 보여줘라.
I don't know about Korea, but in the US there are universal codes, which means that there are certain codes that every card cheat knows. Back when I was married, I taught my wife this signal, which means let's leave. You use it in the game when you think that you've either won enough money and it's time to leave, or you think you're getting too much heat and you want to leave before you have trouble. So you do that. With my wife, it was whenever I wanted to leave her in-laws because I was bored with their palaver, I would do this, and she would know it was time to leave her. When she was at my parents' house and she wanted to sneak out, she would do this.
맞아. 내가 자꾸 깜빡해가지고 내가 죄송합니다. 자, 사자 좀.
Well, the use of a shiner or a glim, as it's known, is again very authentic, very realistic. That's used by cheats all the time. In any card game, the great mystery is what's on the other side of this card. One way to find out is to mark the back of the card. Another way to find out is to have a reflective surface on the table. The ring is one example, but another is a cup of coffee at the table. If it's black coffee, as you deal the cards over the coffee, you can catch a glimpse of the index of the card. Once you decide you don't want to do that anymore, to destroy the evidence, you just pour a little cream in the coffee, and that kills the reflection.
이리 하시죠.
와, 내가 길이 할게.
Shifts to nullify the cut are a reality, of course. 3-block shift, I think, is a little bit fanciful. I don't see anybody being able to do that. And one thing they don't mention is, how do you mark off the sections where the cuts happen? There are ways of doing that, but they don't show you anywhere here. It's just like he magically knows where to divide the cards to reverse the cut. There are some cheating methods that use estimation, what you're describing as estimation. Most card sheets don't have the skill to do that. And in any case, methods that rely on estimation still have to be a method devised such that you have a 1 or 2 card leeway, so the method will still work even if you're 1 or 2 cards off. If it depends on you being exactly correct, it's not very practical. And this shift, if they're assuming that he knows by sight exactly how many cards were cut, and then by feel can cut the exact same number of cards, that's Fantasyland.
He is the master cheat in the movie.
보강렬이
And he looks like a master cheat, which is not a good thing.
처음부터 장난질이냐? 이 손바닥에 화투 한 장 붙어있다는 것에 내 돈 모두하고 내 손 하나를 걸었다. 너는 무엇을 걸래?
왜 이러세요?
삼촌. 이러니 돈을 꼬르셨다.
I actually know a card cheat who witnessed that exact same thing happening, believe it or not.
Really?
Yes, and I know him well enough to know that he's telling the truth.
정마담도 밑에서 한 장, 나 한 장. 아기한텐 다시 밑에서 한 장. 이제 정마담에게 마지막.
Well, the bottom deal is definitely a method of cheating at cards. Of course, they slowed it down so that it would be obvious what he was doing, but he did it pretty well. I would say he did it well enough to get by in the average game, although it could be done much better than he did it.
준비됐어? 까볼까? 자, 지금부터 확인 들어가겠습니다.
따라란 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 따 궁작자 궁작자
따라리라라리. 사쿠라네? 사쿠라야?
This is a fanciful notion that people have, that the best cheats in the world get together and cheat each other for fun or for money. No. There's so many suckers out there. Why would you want to put yourself against other cheats? This is not the Olympics. This is a money-making operation. You find suckers to play against. You don't find other expert cheats to cheat against. I think it's very entertaining. It plays off people's fantasy notions of what card cheating is like. It's not a realistic movie in any sense, but it's very entertaining. It's very ingenious.
What's the reality of being a card cheat?
The reality of being a card cheat is grim and dangerous and not very much fun. It's like the difference between a James Bond movie and real espionage. Real espionage is dangerous, boring, not something that you want to watch a whole movie about. James Bond is what people would love espionage to be about. And this is like the James Bond of card cheating.